Good morning, and thank you for joining today's GP Tips and Tricks webinar, linking sales orders to purchase orders. I'm Megan Turco, and I'll be your moderator today. Before we jump in, I'm going to briefly go over how to use the webinar console. The orange arrow on the right side of your screen will let you toggle your control tray open or closed. And at the bottom of the control tray, you'll see a chat window. Please feel free to submit your questions at any time throughout the webinar via the chat function, and we'll get to those towards the end of the webinar during our Q&A session. Additionally, on your GoToWebinar console, you should see an area for audio settings. If you're calling in through your telephone, please make sure to use the Use Telephone option. If you're using your computer speakers, please select Use Mic and Speakers option instead. And lastly, I do want to note that today's webinar is being recorded, so we'll be able to send out the slides as well as a link to the on-demand recording within about 48 hours, so definitely keep an eye out for this email if you're interested in accessing today's webinar after today. And with that, I would like to introduce today's featured webinar speaker, Megan Fall, who is a senior consultant for our Armanino's Dynamics GP practice. Megan has over 6 years of experience implementing and supporting GP, and she's a Microsoft certified professional in GP financials, supply chain, and implementation with extensive experience in management reporter and integration manager. So Megan, it's great to have you with us today, and with that, I will turn the presentation over to you.
Thank you, Megan, and welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today. The presentation today is going to go through how or when to utilize the link between sales orders and purchase orders, and how to use the sales order to purchase order link process. And then we're going to go through a demo where we show you exactly how this is done. So just to get the basics out of the way on our slides here, when would you use a linked sales order to purchase order? Basically, this is done whenever you are buying items either in a shortage or you're buying items on behalf of a customer. So the most common is using a drop ship. So that's when you're buying an item and you're having it shipped directly from the producer to the customer. So it never hits your own warehouse, it goes direct. However, this is not only used when you have a finished good. It can also be done through if you have services that are being provided by another entity. So you are handling the sales for your customer, but either the service or item is being handled by the purchasing vendor. So that is another option that you could, or scenario in which you could be using those SOP to POP link. So that goes through when upfront payment is required. That basically means that you never hold inventory on hand. You only purchase inventory or service when a customer requests it. So that means that you get the money up front by processing a sales order, and then you enter a purchase order on behalf of the customer. Okay, so now that we've gone through the preliminaries, the basic process is fairly straightforward. And I'm very sorry that our slide seems to have moved slightly, and that box should be covering under the Actions tab, it should be covering the Purchase option there. Just imagine that that's what it says. Basically, you just go to your normal sales order, you enter it as usual, and then you click on the Action tab and you select Purchase. Then what's going to pop up is a new window that has all these red X's on it. And you just want to check the box next to the top red X that says No Vendor, and then select the PO tab. All those 4 options along the horizontal menu, the vendor, PO, item, and sales are tabs, just in case that's not visually something you can tell visually from the slide. So then you enter your vendor ID. You can change the PO date, and you can change the shipping method as well if there's a specific, if you're going to do airship or local delivery or FedEx, however you want to call the shipping method. You select what works for you. And then if you just want to look through farther, the item card, you can make any changes there if your unit cost has changed. Sometimes, the price differs from your current price. You might need to update that. You can also update quantity if you're only doing a partial PO at the time, like a 50% kind of thing, you can do that there. And then as soon as you fill this out, you hit the Generate button, and that creates your PO for you. Okay? And then when you go back to your sales transaction, you're going to notice this little chain link icon under your quantity ordered. If you need to look up what PO is being linked to the sales order, you can click the button that looks like the chain link on the right of the quantity order. So there's the blue arrow, there's the little warning sign, and then there's the chain link. If you click on that, it will show you your PO. So of course, once we've done this, there's always a caveat for when you're trying to void or delete a sales order. So let's say the customer changes their mind, they no longer want the item, and they need you to stop the purchase side. So the first thing that you have to do is you have to break the link. So in order to do that, and this can be broken on either the sales side or the PO side. You can do it from either. If you go to the PO, it's also going to have that chain link little icon on there. So you would click on that. It's the same for on the sales side. You click on the chain link icon. It pulls up the item and tells you either the sales order or the purchase order that's associated. And then you simply hit the delete button, and that breaks the link between the sales order and the PO. They both are still going to be there. It just is deleting the link, not the actual PO or SO. And then you would go through and do a normal void or delete, whatever your settings require you to do. And that would take care of the issue. Okay, so now we're going to transition to our demo. Give us 1 second while we transition screens. Okay, all right. So I'm going to start off with, because the dropship is such a common way to do this, I'm going to use that for my demo, but like I said, that's not the only time that you would use this. So we are going to create our normal order, just as usual. I'm going to select my Aaron Fitz customer. I am going to create a special batch for this, just so we have a nice clean one. Okay, and of course, as normal, you have to click through all of the different items to make sure that the currency populates, and then we can enter our item. So I'm going to use item, our binary item there, and I'm just going to do one item, or one quantity. So as soon as I click off, you'll see it pops up and it says that I have 0 quantity available. So I have a shortage here, and I need to override this shortage. So I just say OK, because I'm not keeping anything on hand. That's what prompts this. Okay, so then I'm going to check my Dropship button, and that tells the system that it's going to need a purchase order. So if we click down on the details, though, you'll also see, because I did the Dropship button, it automatically enters the quantity from the quantity invoice to the quantity fulfilled, because it knows that there's not going to be a separate process, that it's going to be fulfilled directly to the customer through the purchase order. Okay, then our next option is to go to Actions and go to Purchase. Okay, and that pops up the window that I just told you about. And along here you see all our red X's. So if we start at the top and we do the checkbox, and then I'm going to click on the PO, and I'm going to select Beaumont Construction. And I don't mind the PO date, that's perfectly fine. Currency is fine, but I'm going to select the shipping method, and I'm going to say that this is being shipped ground. Okay, then I'm going to go to my item, and I'm going to just double check, and to me everything looks fine. I don't plan to make any changes, but we could. I could make this, maybe the price has gone down or the cost has gone down, so I'm going to make this $120 instead of $125, and that would just cause a little bit of a variance on the purchasing side. You'll see that the dropship is checked here as well, and that just again tells us that it knows on the purchasing side that it's going to have to act in a specific way for dropship. And just in case you're wondering, the sales there's nothing that you can change on the sales side because that's all on the transaction entry window, but it does allow you just to verify, especially the address, because this is going to be a dropship. So we would need to verify that we want it to go to this particular address and that it's correct so that the vendor knows how to ship the item. Okay, and then as soon as we have gone through and we've looked at everything, confirmed it's good, we hit generate, and I can put it to screen just so we can see it. Okay, it produces just like normal posting or any of your transfer actions. It does create just a register showing that it has created a purchase order on your behalf with your correct information. So it's kind of like having an edit list for you. So just verify that looks good. And so now we close out of sales for a moment and we go to purchasing. We pull up our PO that we just created. There's our Beaumont PO. And it gives me the item. And here's our link. So you can see it's got the little icon. And this is from the purchasing side. Oops, sorry. Let me grab that item. And then I click on the link and it shows me this is the sales order that's linked to that purchase order. So like I said, you can do this from either side, either the PO or the sales side. And so you can just hit this delete sales doc, and that just simply breaks the connection and removes the sales order from this list here. It does not actually delete or void the sales order itself. Okay, so we've verified that. And let's see, so I'm going to just show you from the sales side too, just so that you can see both. So on the sales side, we're going to go find our order. That's this one right here. Okay, and so you can see that link again. It looks a little bit different when we select it from the sales side. Oh, sorry. I can't have both of them open. I should know that by now. Okay. All right. So from the sales side, it looks like this. So it just says PO commitment. So it knows that the item is on this PO. Okay. And then, of course, you've got your promise date. So this is where, if you were actually doing this, your purchase order would probably have a different date from your date of entry would not be the same as your promise date. Because, of course, you have to send this to the vendor has to ship it, and then it comes back. So most likely your promise date would be in the future by some amount of time, whatever is normal for your vendor. Okay. So if we were going through, yes, I want to save this. If we were going through this, you can do this, you can clear the transactions from one of two directions. Either you can complete your sales order first and say that so normally you would go in, so you'd pull up your order. We'll go with that one for now. Pull up your order and you would say, okay, I've received payment from my customer, so I'm going to transfer this to an invoice. And just click on transfer to invoice and then include totals and deposits. And then you hit transfer. And we don't need to see those. Those are just the normal logs saying it transitioned. So now we would have to go find it under invoice. Come on. It needs me to close out and go back in, I'm sure. Oh. Sorry, I'm clicking a little too fast today. All right, so under invoice, go and look up our newly transitioned, should be this one. Yes. Oh, no, not that one. My goodness. All right, maybe I should have looked first. Okay. Sorry, everybody. Give me 1 second to go find this guy. I put it under, oh, it should be this one here, link and transactions. And invoice. And interesting. Okay, so something went wrong there. But basically, you can go through the invoicing process on your sales order first to say that you've received payment and then process your sales order, or sorry, your purchase order, or you can go through and do the invoicing of your purchase order first and then finalize your sales order. Either direction works perfectly fine. For the purchase order, because it's a drop ship, you won't be doing a receiving transaction. You will simply be doing an invoice direct. So you would use the enter match invoice for vendor document, or we can give it a fake one for the moment. We would go find our Beaumont construction vendor. I can't remember if it requires a batch, but we're going to go ahead and say that it does. Yeah, 417 I believe is the, or I think it's 412 is the one they use here. Yes, we'll add the batch. Save that. Okay, and then we select our purchase order. This is the one that we had our link on. And we just grab the item. Okay, we tell it that one item, because that's all we had in our batch, is being completed here, or invoiced. And then we simply hit save, and we got to go to our batch and process that. Post. Go ahead and show you the invoicing posting journal. We're not going to go through the rest of these though. Too many of those. Okay, so that shows us that it has completed the invoicing process on the PO side. So the PO is now closed. But if you go into the sales, the link will still be there because that was, that just stays along with the ride. Let's see. If I can't find it this time, then we'll go ahead and end there. But I think I should be able to grab our most recent. Well, that was the one we tried before, but let's see. See if maybe it stayed in order for some reason. I think it did. Yeah, that looks like the right one. Okay, for some reason that didn't transfer. But let's try it again now. We'll go through the same transfer to invoice, include totals and deposits. We'll say transfer. Let's put this to screen and just see what it says. Okay, so that says now it transitioned properly. Okay, great. So now we would have it under invoice, and we go through the save process, and you would just simply, you would print this out and send it to your customer, or you just simply process it through and post it as normal. So that's pretty much where our demo ends, and now we can go back and see if there's any questions waiting for us. So if you have any questions from what we've just seen, please feel free to put it through on the chat window, or chat section of your webinar window. I'll give everybody a minute or two. Don't currently have any questions, but give everybody a minute if they want to put something through.
So it looks like we did get just one question in so far. Thank you, Megan, for making everything as clear as possible so we don't have too many, but we do have this one. Can you generate a sales order from a purchase order?
No, unfortunately, the process does not go the opposite direction. It's just from sales order. From the sales order, you can generate a purchase order, but not the other direction.
Well, it looks like that's actually all the questions that we have for today. But of course, if you do have any other questions or anything that you'd like to follow up with Megan, feel free to reach out to her directly. And we also have Saher's information on the screen as well. So Saher can also help with any questions that you might have on this, this subject. But that does wrap up our webinar for today. As you exit, there will be a quick survey. Please take a moment to let us know your thoughts on today's webinar. And thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you on the next Armanino webinar.